Hello, this is TV International. I'm Patty Debonitas. I'm here with Fariborz Pooya from the Worker Communist Party of Iran. We are talking about the elections in Iran, and now what I want to talk to you about is two things. The Western media and the portrayal and the representation and reporting of the elections, but also what the media makes out of the election results and what we can or cannot perhaps expect.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back for a moment. Just before the election, they actually, despite the fact that we were working very hard in New Channel TV and that Worker Communist Party of Iran to say both in Iran and abroad that it's not an election, it doesn't have any legitimacy in terms of election that we debated earlier. They worked really hard. They started out debates about the election results, candidates. Suddenly talked about the wife of the candidates. Different sort of how many layers of hijab they're wearing, all of those things, and try to give an air of legitimacy to this process. Try to actually find differences, which is really hard to find differences between different candidates, and they try to actually present it as an election. And that was, I think, it worked really hard for this. We know that the fundamental issues of policy in Iran is decided by the supreme leader in Iran. We know that this government does not accept the voice and the role of people. It doesn't, people, and we've said that this election doesn't have any legitimacy. There was a lot of effort put in and time was put in both by the BBC, Voice of America, many different TV channels which actually broadcasted in Iran live 24 hours a day in Farsi to actually give an air of legitimacy. That wasn't successful. I think it wasn't successful. You'll see now that it wasn't successful. People haven't accepted. If it was a legitimate election, what's the problem? The guy is won, but we know that it doesn't have legitimacy. That's why election is both in terms of rigging of the election and results, and actually it doesn't represent any of those candidates. Actually, do not represent. Clearly, there was a lot of capital was put on the winning of hoping that Mousavi will win, and slightly start negotiating with Obama, and that that's not the interest of. It hasn't served the interest of the Western governments effectively, and its media outlets, the BBC and the Voice of America. That hasn't been. But now we'll see, after the election, when people actually have come out following our policy of saying that this doesn't have a legitimacy, we need to overthrow all of the Islamic regime, they are trying to say these are the Mousavi supporters. And while we're saying actually they're not Mousavi supporters, they are our supporters who actually want to overthrow the Islamic regime of Iran. And that's significantly important. They're not interested in this. And they're trying to actually portray even the current protest, saying this is sort of against Ahmadinejad and for Mousavi. Actually, Mousavi said to people, go back home. I'll sort this out through official channels. That's not what he wants. And it's very clear that is to some extent rattled the cage of the Western media as well. I just want to refer to John Simpson's a quotation from John Simpson in BBC. He's actually said, if I sort of remember that, he said, what's happening in Iran, a long period of disorder in Iran is not in the interest of the outside world. Okay, so clearly he's taken his position. He's not happy with the protest that is going on in Iran. He says that political chaos in an oil-producing country do more damage to Western interests effectively. And the significant part of this, what John Simpson says, is that they would prefer President Ahmadinejad to these protests. And I think this is criminal to some extent. This is very criminal, and I want to take issue with the BBC and BBC and John Simpson. They are actually, while we have on the streets, we are organising demonstrations, and people have been shot. John Simpson has the audacity, and the BBC, they have the cheek to go and work against the protesters in Iran, who actually are the real voice of people in Iran. And that's outrageous. That cannot be accepted. They are destroying our movement. First of all, they present our movement against the Islamic regime as if it is for Mousavi. And then they say, this is not interest of the... I thought they were backing Mousavi, weren't they? But if this is Mousavi's supporters, why are they so upset?
No, he's talking about the chaos, isn't he?
Of course, exactly. They're talking about demonstrations who actually are demanding. This is not chaos. Demonstrators actually, when they're on street fights, they've got a police officer, riot police. They've actually burned his motorbike. They drag him in. They don't actually touch him. They give him water. They look after him. This is not chaos. This is legitimate, civilized protest of people of Iran against the rule of the Islamic regime. And here we have John Simpson and the BBC backing Ahmadinejad and saying that, his case is how quickly he can get rid of his case. This is not chaos. This is legitimate protest of the people, and it should be BBC and the John Simpson should be ashamed of themselves actually referring to the legitimate protest of people in Iran as chaos, and actually thinking that the interest of, and this is very interesting, the most fascist government in Middle East is an interest when it comes to people of Iran, is an interest of the Western government, according to John Simpson and BBC, and they're not prepared to back. This has been their position all along. Even before the election, they've actually tried to portray this as a legitimate election and hoping that their interest will be served, that they'll have a slightly less sort of, angry sort of president in office in Iran, and now they're taking a position against legitimate movement.
But I thought there was so much confrontation between the West and Ahmadinejad because of his Holocaust denial, because of the nuclear issue. So
when it comes to real voice of people, we know where BBC stands. When it comes to real voice of people, we know where John Simpson stands, and they should be ashamed of themselves. John Simpson, where is the objectivity? Suddenly journalism is gone out of the, objectivity of the journalists, gone out of the window. Now we have the John Simpson and the BBC supporting Ahmadinejad and the fascist government, Islamic fascist government in Iran when it comes to interests of the people. Actually, what are they asking? My question to John Simpson and BBC is this not a legitimate protest of the people of Iran? They're demanding for freedom. That's what they're asking for. They're asking for actually be able to breathe. They don't want Islamic rule in Iran. We don't want Islamic rule. But we know that the BBC and John Simpson is not going to do that. WPI and the new channel TV and the national TV is going to represent that, and we'll see that in the future that we'll win. We're pretty sure about this.
I think the media in general in the West has not reported it as a call for freedom of the people. I think they reported it as more like the Mousavi supporters are disappointed and they cannot quite comprehend what happened. And other governments have been very quiet about the elections result. The US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has said nothing basically about it, and she said she just hoped that the will of the people has been served.
Well, but not through the elections in the Islamic regime. Will of people would not, as we said earlier, there's no channel within the Islamic regime and its constitution and its process to ask for will of people to actually be expressed. It's on the streets that it's going to be expressed, and that's what we represent.
So that means that hopefully in the future, what's going to happen?
I think it's difficult to predict, but what we're very clear what we want. We do not want the Islamic regime of Iran. The protest in Iran doesn't want the Islamic regime in Iran. We are the voice of the people of Iran. BBC isn't. The objectivity clearly is taken behind Ahmadinejad and the Islamic government of Iran. They prefer Islamic regime of Iran to the voice of people and the more democratic people that actually seems that they benefit. Clearly they want the chaos of Middle East to continue. They're not the ones who want. We're not the ones who want chaos. We actually want to represent the people of Iran. And what's happening in Iran is not chaos. What's happening in Middle East, in Lebanon, in Palestine is chaos, and that's directly what the Ahmadinejad wants, and that's the policy. That's not what we want. We'll change that as soon as we come to power. But clearly, John Simpson and the BBC don't understand that.
Fariborz Pooya, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
This was TV International with Fariborz Pooya on the elections in Iran. I hope you enjoyed the program. My name is Patty Debonitas. Until next time, goodbye.